Alrighty then. So we've got pretty cool image of a living room area and a kitchen and whatever this thing is. And I want to combine multiple flash layers with an ambient and possibly a window pull, or at least a partial window pull, because this is a little bit too blown out, but can probably save it with a little bit of highlight reduction. But anyway, let's go ahead and run through the layers real quick. So flash frame 1 is just behind the camera pointed into the ceiling, but with the flash head facing backwards. So not forwards, because if I had it forwards, you'd see some really hard shadows here. You definitely notice this onto the ceiling, and it just would not be a good look. By the way, this is really overexposed. Look at that. That's crazy. Anyway, so next up, we got the right side flash. Right side flash. I had to look at my hand because I'm an idiot. Right side flash. And that is lighting up the left portion of the composition. So I basically do both sides of the composition, not from the room's perspective, but from the camera's perspective. So I basically, once I have my composition set, I will split the image in half and light it side to side based on the composition. So that's how I kind of go through rooms really quick, is because of this whole side to side method. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. Going forward, we got this little, I don't know what you would call it. I can't remember what was there. I think it might have been some kind of like bar situation, like a little itty bitty bar or whatever. But I am right here. You can see my gut, and then my little itty bitty hand. I'm just bouncing. I'm just bouncing into this portion. Or was I bouncing into this portion? No, it was definitely this portion, because I wanted to get some more depth on this cabinet thing. Moving on. We got this one, which is just a super simple like ceiling bounce, just to get this sliver of curtain and wall lit up properly. And then we got our window pulls, which I backed down to 1/60th of a sec. 160 ISO. There we go. Before I was at 640, which is pretty high, and you can see like probably didn't need to go that strong with it. Probably could have gotten away with either 400 or 320, but I was unaware of how bright these images would actually be. So we got the window pulls, 1/200th of a second. These are also 1/200th of a second, because I wanted to get as little ambient as possible, just to cut down on the color casts. But we've got window pull 1, and then window pull 2. We probably the reason why I take 2 in some cases is because it can sometimes cancel out the shadows that you're getting from the previous window pull. You can see there's still a little sliver of it right there. I might have to do some Photoshop magic to get rid of that. Anyway, ambient frame, nothing too special about it. ISO 640, 7.1, 1/80th of a second. This was a pretty bright room, and I felt like this was a pretty good ambient exposure. I don't take brackets for no particular reason other than I'm lazy and I don't want to switch my camera from bracketing mode back to timer, back and forth, and I hate it. I don't like it. Anyway, tangent. Let's get to processing these. So my processing is fairly simple. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control A. That'll select all of these images. And I'm going to set my white balance to auto. I'm going to set my highlights to -45, my shadows to +45. I'm going to drop the sharpening, and then I'm going to add 45 in the noise reduction, and I'm going to remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. Super, super simple so far. You might be wondering, like, why I went with auto. Most of the time, auto gets me in a really good spot to where it's warm, and at the end of the edit, post Photoshop, I can add contrast in it, and it really saturates the oranges and just makes it feel really, really warm and inviting, and I like that look. You can obviously go super overboard with this one and make it really sterile, but I hate that look so much. It drives me crazy. I don't like it. I would never want to be in a room that is this white, this bluish. It's just not comfortable for me. Anyway, let's go ahead and fix the exposure. This is too bright. I'm going to go ahead and take the middle portion of the histogram. I'm going to back it down about right there. So I'm looking at the histogram. I'm not even looking at the image. And I'm checking out this little peak right here. And I want to line that up with this line right here. And as you can see, we got a pretty good exposure for the walls. I'm not too concerned about the foreground because I'm not going to be using the foreground for this. I'm just worried, or just concerned about this portion. All right, moving on. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to back it down to about there. That seems pretty good. You might think, oh, it's a little bit dark though, and I don't like dark images, and I like dark images. Dark images to an extent. I mean, if it's super dark like this, I don't particularly like that look. I just like it within reason. But that looks pretty good. That looks fine. That looks fine. I'm gonna bring this to 5500 Kelvin. Back it down. I'll bring this to 5500 Kelvin, which is daylight. I'm gonna back it down and make sure that they're relatively similar in brightness. Yeah, cool. This one, I'm not too concerned about the color. I'm just worried about the overall exposure. So I think that looks pretty good. All right, Control A. Edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. From here, I'm going to use my actions because without them, I feel like I go really slow. And if I'm really slow, I feel like I'm going to put a bullet in my skull. That was dark. Anyway, I'm going to provide these actions because they're pretty handy. I'm not going to charge for them or anything because I don't like charging for them. I don't think charging for them is going to make me happy, honestly. But anyway, let's go ahead and reverse the layers because these are in the wrong order. I'm going to reverse them, make sure the ambient's on top. I'm going to take all these layers. I'm going to turn the visibility off for all of these. And if you're wondering how I did that, I'm just left clicking. Click, and then drag down. And then I can start with the old side to side. So, depending on where your flash frame is, or where your flash placement is going to determine which one of these you're going to use. So, in this case, I'm going to use black to white. And the reason why is because I am on this side. So black is going to remove me and keep this portion. If I was on this side, I'd choose white to black for the inverse reasons. So let's go ahead and hit black to white. And that gets us pretty much done with the base part of our image. And but we do want to remove a little bit more, because if you can notice here, maybe not. Most of the time I'm usually in the flash frame or in the gradient composite blend. So what I do is I just hit the brush tool, and with a flow of 30%, I'm gonna bring up the diameter of the brush, and then I'm just gonna paint a little bit out. Swap my foreground colors. So now this is what the mask looks like. Pretty basic so far. Got it with it. I like it. Anyway, moving on to the what is this called? The behind the camera flash. I use this in normal and darken, so I split the two into two different blend modes. So normal pretty much will just brighten up anything that I think is too dark. Like, for instance, this is a little bit dark. I want a little bit more color out of it. And then that looks pretty good. I'm going to bring this up there. And then the darken is going to take care of things like this and like this. So just darken all that up. And I think that's looking real snazzy. I like it. All right, this one, super simple. Just hit lighten mode and just brush that in just a smidge. Same thing with this one, lighten mode. Because we don't want to take the entire thing. Because if we take the entire thing, it's going to give us this weird, like little shadow nonsense. So we're only taking the brightest pixels of the image. All right. I'm going to combine these two real quick. So I'm going to... I'm going to go with lighten blend mode. I'm going to add a layer mask. And then I'm just going to brush this out. Cool. So I can just take this and group it. And then I will hit the darken blend. And I know I don't want any of that. So I'm going to make a real quick pen tool selection. And it doesn't have to be great. It just needs to be serviceable. All right, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and make this into a selection. Control Shift Enter will make that into a selection, and then Shift F6 will allow you to feather it. I'm gonna feather by 3. And then I will just what I feel is good. I think that looks pretty decent. Get a little bit more color in there, a little bit more highlight detail. I like it. Whoa, that's crazy. I like it. And now the ambient. I use a lot of ambient. If you don't like using a lot of ambient, more power to you. But I use a ton of it. So with my blend ambient luminosity action, it blends pretty much all of it. So I'm gonna need to get rid of it in certain places like this here. But overall, I think it smooths it out really nicely. I like that. All right. Now then, I'm gonna do just some little bit of touching up just to fix a few things. So I'm gonna hit Control Shift Alt N. Creates a new layer. This is bothering me so much. Hit up the spot healing tool. Make sure sample all layers is turned on, and look at that. It's on. And I know this has some like random stuff on it, so I just want to remove that. Coolio. Anything else? I don't think so. I think we're looking pretty good. If I was getting paid at all, I would do my hardest to try to remove these things, these little annoyances. Houses, they're called. I would try to remove them, or at least replace the sky to the point where I can cover it up, and maybe that would be difficult to do. Probably end up just I would probably just cut it off. People wouldn't notice. But anyway, let's flatten that image because we're not done yet. So this is going to go back into Lightroom to where we can do our final processing, because this is looking really good, but it's looking flat to me. I think it looks pretty flat. Wow, this is taking forever. But anyway, flatness is not really what I look for in images. I like a lot of punch. I like a lot of saturation. A lot of saturation to specific colors. Oranges, I like. Yellows, not too much. Greens, not really. Blues, I'm iffy on blues, to be quite honest. Well, I already said greens. Purples, magentas, not a huge fan. But this is taking way too long. I just reset my computer the other day. It should not be taking this long, especially for a flattened image. This is only, I wish I can check. I assume it's probably like, go ahead and take a look at this. How do I do that? Oh, there we go. Document size. It's only 86 megabytes. Weird. All right, anyway, contrast. I'm going to put this up to 60 just to see what it looks like. That looks amazing. I like it. I like what it's doing. Yellows are a little bit much, but I'm going to bring up the shadows just to counteract some of the darkening that it's doing in the shadows. I'm gonna provide a little bit of vibrance, and then I'm going to take this little doodad here, this little adjustment selector thing. I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna desaturate a little bit of this, so about -30 and like -15. Yellows, greens. Don't really like yellows and greens. Blues? Iffy on the blues, to be honest. I'll come back to you. Sharpening, 75. Because why not? I'm gonna add a very small amount of noise reduction, just a little bit. Actually, about 15. 15's fine. Hit up the old vertical adjustment. Make sure our lines are all vertical. It looks like it's, maybe it's my eyes. It looks like it's crooked just a little bit, but if you check, it looks perfect. Interesting. I'm gonna add a little vignette. Maybe about 5. So we went from this. Oh, pretty neato. I quite like it. It's kind of refreshing going back to a style that I was more comfortable with. I know I tend to play around with other styles, but I like this look. I've always liked this look, and I've always considered it to be my look that I go for. and everything else is just me kind of imitating other photographers or editors. But anyway, this video is long. It's probably like 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes. I'm probably not going to edit this because I'm a lazy bastard. But I just wanted to get this out to you guys. Anyway, I hope you guys get something good out of this because I think it's a pretty good edit. I like it. Anyway, take care.